Yes, it has started already. Yes, we have started. I'm hoping you are not having too much YouTube issues, but yeah, welcome. Good morning, good day, good evening from wherever you are. My name is Ernst Baart from thehockeysite.com, and I will be co-hosting today's live stream with my good friend from Canada. Let me point in the right direction. This, nope, that
Nope.
that direction. No, that come on. She's next to me, Keely Dunn from Canada, the world's famous umpire whisperer from FHumpires. So, Keely, always a pleasure to be on the show with you. But yeah, to avoid us having all these online fights, we invited two guests here, and the ones who already were expecting to see Xavier Reckinger there. No, he has not shaven his hair. This is actually Bernardo Fernandez, the creator from South Pass and a coach in Germany at the moment. We had what really was a last-minute cancellation from Xavier Reckinger, but for a good reason. His little boy got sick, so he had to take him to the doctor. And we are very happy that Bernardo was able to join us last minute to fill the coaching spot. And we are very happy as well to have David Ames among us. David Ames, current international player for GB and England and whatever countries you all have at that island of you. But yeah, I think that you're still captaining GB. Let's call it like that. And well, we're going to talk today about aerials. And yeah, Keely thought if I'm going to talk as an umpire with a coach and a player about aerials, yeah, then I need somebody there to calm everybody down and to keep everybody grounded. So that's my role today. But I'm going to shut up as much as possible. And Keely, it's all your shows now.
Oh my goodness. This is amazing. Anyway, Bernardo, thank you so much for stepping in. It's just so great. And I think the last time we had on a fight on Twitter, I don't even remember what it was about. So I'm amazed that you actually agreed to come back on. But clearly you forgot what it was about too. So this is great. But anyway, thank you for stepping in so much. And really nice to have David Ames along as well. I feel like I'm collecting Y1 players on the show. So next up, I need Yoop Jamal to come on and make me laugh for a couple hours. So let's.
You don't want you. You don't
no,
want you.
I do.
Promise you.
I do.
Promise you.
Very funny.
Very difficult guy. Very difficult guy. That guy.
Absolutely. So I don't have a strict, I don't have a lecture. I have none of that stuff because nobody likes to listen to umpires talk about rules. I do have them on the side if we need to go and refer to them, because sometimes there's mysterious things that pop up, like different words that you didn't know were actually included in them. So they're available. But what we did was we put together a number of clips that we can talk through together, because I think that's a really useful way of, I don't know, applying all of our understanding. And to me, my focus, I don't care about the rest of you. My focus today is asking you guys questions about what you see from your perspective, what you understand, how and how you're looking at it from a performance perspective. Like, how can you figure out how to play the aerial rule better so that you're succeeding on the pitch, you're not giving up penalty corners, you're forcing penalty corners, you're doing all that sort of thing. And we're focusing specifically on aerials into the D. So did you guys have any opening things that you wanted to say about aerials and how much you love umpires and how they handle them?
I can start. First of all, thank you for the invitation, Kelly and Ernst. I definitely am not prepared. I didn't came prepared, which normally I would like to do. So I will try to speak the least from the four of us, but definitely will try to bring my opinion and my perspective in the aerials. I just think it's a very interesting, exciting part of the game, both technically and as we could see in the last World Cup, tactically is more and more a very big threat. Now in mid distance and power play situations. So I'm excited to see and to debate. But I don't have anything right now very prepared. So bear with me.
Well, let me open up with a question for you, though, especially for the coaching perspective. When we did the panel talk during the World Cup, Xavier Reckinger was on the show, and he at the given moment told me that he was very surprised that coaches and players still have not figured out the right way to deal with these incoming aerials into the D. And especially during that World Cup, we saw several phases there. So, are you dealing with this? How are you preparing your players to deal with this incoming Ds? Leave alone the rules for that moment, but just tactically as well.
Right. So I would say, Ernst, that maybe relates with the point that in the 5 minutes you gave me before this call, I was already thinking a little bit about. And also because I'm now coming out from the indoor season, so now I would dive and I would like to break through a lot of the World Cup matches and situations. But one thing for me was very clear, and maybe David also experienced that either as in a defensive position, but also in the attacking position, that there were a lot of power play situations, so particularly from a long corner range where teams were using these mid balls. And I think that's also related with a conflict that some teams have on switching from zonal systems to man-on-man systems. And sometimes it was easy for the possession team to manipulate some of the teams. So I would say that among other ingredients, the German team did this very well. They defend this situation really well. And I think that's also related with a certain flexibility they have in their zonal system to adapt when their team came a little bit lower in the pitch, so closer to their defensive circle, they adapted their zonal system. So it was difficult to find a spare or a free player in their circle, or at least was more difficult than the other teams that I saw. So I think overall it's very much related with when teams come into an attacking power play phase, some of them change from zonal to man, and sometimes in that moment there are some situations where it's possible to manipulate and to find a free player, because you saw this a lot in the World Cup. I don't know, David, if you had that perception or if it was something that you guys noticed also during the World Cup, but for me it was very clear from a superficial observational point of view, not really if you even look into video tower footage, not coding the matches, just as on a naked eye perspective, let's say.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think we found maybe in the lead up to the World Cup, especially with a few blocks of the Pro League, that the aerial was starting to come a little bit more and more, especially as you worked into like high transfer phase. But the World Cup was a clear distinction that the aerial is coming more and more into our game, especially into the circle. And you can see, and exactly as you said, the more manipulation from a man-to-man system of being able to utilize the aerial was definitely something that teams were looking to do, especially. Maybe a little bit less likely when teams are playing zone, and not many teams are playing deep zone. You've seen the Germans change their system to like a really deep zone, regardless of whether they were down to 10 men, and obviously that seemed to work for them. Belgium, I think, have been playing zone for quite a number of years. We've been doing a lot of man-to-man. And so, yeah, listen, it was utilized an awful lot, and something which, you know, I'd imagine teams, especially us as well, like we've been trying to develop the range of high ball, but also the height at which an aerial is played. So therefore, the defender has no chance to be able to receive it. You can see that teams, that if they play the ball as an aerial quite flat, it gives the opportunity for a defender to be able to retreat a couple of yards and be able to essentially pick it or receive it. Now, what you're saying is that the trajectory or the height of the aerial is getting bigger and bigger to allow no defender any chance to be able to receive any balls that are going towards baseline. And obviously that's giving us more of a problem from an umpire perspective. maybe changing the game a little bit from a defensive point of view, that we as defenders maybe don't have as much say inside our own circle as what we'd want to, because the advantage is definitely going towards the attackers. So, and that's obviously becoming a little bit of a conflict between between everyone. And I think having left the World Cup, it was probably one of the most talked about discussions, which is great that we're having it, because definitely at times you could see, is this clear? Is this different than what's happened the day before? Is this being used as a referral, rightly or wrongly? That's probably why it's good to have this this discussion today.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here since I'm the one with the buttons, so I can press my own scene. I really like that comment, David, about the trajectory of the ball being really crucial, and something that I talk about a lot when I'm trying to coach umpires about this is that there are a vast number of differences between that trajectory that comes flat and low like you described, or is high and is dropping between or in a different sort of receiving zone. And one of the problems is that I think we've been taught as umpires through things like 5 meters off the free hit and things like that to look at 5 meters as being something that's described on the ground. So it's like a circle that's around a play, or a disc that's painted on the ground. And that really doesn't apply when you're talking about the ball. The ball is in this 3D space, and it changes what the danger area is. Like, to make it very simple, like, where is the danger going to occur? That is what's happening in the air according to that trajectory of the ball. And umpires have to adjust to that and be looking at the ball path rather than the field space. Does that make sense from that perspective? It's a different way of looking at it. And that means that an attacker who is in front of their defender and the low trajectory arrows coming at them, they are an initial receiver. Even though the defender is only 3 meters behind them, are they in a clear space to receive it? Yes, they are, because the 5 meter disc is like this planar. I end up doing all these hand motions and it doesn't make any sense, but it's in front of them. It's this disc in the air rather than extending 5 meters back that way, because the ball isn't going there. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Okay, cool.
I would just say, can I add something? Please. I add or ask something, because as the trend of air hockey and these aerials are becoming so much more common in the game, I also see now a lot of situations from the moment that the ball is thrown in the air, that there is a lot of how would you say, like, there is a lot of permissivity, if you want, to the danger, to the proximity to the first player, to the first opponent there. So I find it interesting. I don't have a clear opinion about this, but I would say that back in the days or previously, a lot more situation would be whistled as danger. I don't know now. It's just because it's became so common that we need to allow a bit more of the situations. So if you understand what I mean, so I'm throwing the ball and there is still a person at 4 meters next to me, and there are so many situations that I thought this is dangerous. On the other hand, if we want to accept and if we want to allow this as such a big part of our game now, maybe we as umpires, we as agents of the game, we need to close our eyes to this rule.
I think a lot of it is based on the interpretation of the rule, and so I think the easiest thing for players at the minute, and I find myself doing this especially, is like we always say this, and Keely, you'll hit me. We just want consistency, which which probably umpires, whenever they hear that, they're thinking, I've heard this 1,000 times across my career. But it's probably at the minute the hardest rule for umpires to umpire, essentially. But the interpretation of the rule, or the way it's written, as I look at it, and you'll probably help clear this up a little bit, is it's not very easy to judge in the moment when the rule is saying received, controlled, and on the ground. If that makes sense. So,
but David, my interpretation. Sorry.
Go on, sorry. No, go on.
So now at this moment, I wasn't talking at the stage that is the most interesting stage here, but in the receiving stage, I'm talking about the moment where the players throw the ball and you see an opponent that needs to kind of needs to get away from the trajectory of the ball. So that was my question here, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a really good point, though, David, because that's one of the questions that that's come up in the comments here. This controlled on the ground. So Kat here, she just did a practice hoofed class match yesterday. Very proud of her, and she's saying she wants to understand, you know, and I'd love to hear, you know, David and B, about your opinions on this. What control looks like, because this whole received, controlled, and on the ground thing, I mean, frankly, I think the rule is extremely outmoded for what you guys are able to do these days, because you can fully control the ball without it even ever touching the ground. I mean, I've seen many players receiving and just cradling on the stick and then being able to go off and you know, do a lacrosse move or hurley or whatever, or receive 3D in your 3D dribbling, or one bounce and it comes back up onto your stick and then you're moving it off in different directions. And I think that's where umpires are getting tripped up, especially at those high levels, is that how do we know what a mishandle is and what is control and an actual intentional, I'm trying to move this ball on or off into this different space because that's where I'm going to try to eliminate a defender. Do you see what I mean with that?
Yeah, no, completely. And I think this is where it's becoming even harder for defenders, and attackers are getting really smart. So like I could, as an attacker, receive the ball potentially and drop it straight down on the floor, essentially. Yeah. So to me, that would be controlled, receive controlled on the floor. So therefore, if the defender is 5 meters away and I've done that, then by all means they should be allowed to encroach and be able to tackle, sort of thing, because I've gone received, ball on the floor. But if I just receive the ball and let the ball bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce, does the defender have to wait until the ball is on the floor, or do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of like grey areas. Also, what's happening now, and I think this is becoming more and more, you'll see from the World Cup final, the aerial that comes across with 2 minutes to go to the Sluver, instead of receiving the ball, his first touch takes him forward towards the defender, whilst bouncing, sort of thing. So therefore, it's like, as a defender, you're thinking, what can you do? Because if you think you're 5 meters from potentially the trap that he's going to do outside the circle by just trapping it, he therefore then plays the ball forward towards you. You have no hope. Like you genuinely have no hope of being able to. And then what do? Do you stand in the way and take a hit to avoid a free shot, or do you back off 5, knowing either somebody's going to get absolutely smashed for this, or he's probably just going to end up scoring, sort of thing. And that's the real hard bit for defenders, is you just don't know. Like is on the ground, literally on the ground, or is it any mistouch and it's bouncing? Is that still classed as on the ground? And that's where it's becoming, and again, very hard for umpires because of the way the rule is written.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's also, and again, I think it will be difficult to get some closed conclusions in certain areas of this rule. But I think that's also, now if I step back from a coach and someone that is watching hockey every day, I think it seems a bit a counter-natural situation that a defender cannot challenge the ball, or needs to really kind of restrain himself, particularly when there is a possibility that me as an attacker, I control the ball and right away smash the ball into goal. So I think this is a situation where we really need to understand where we can go and bringing this rule into a more dynamic and also more aligned with the rest of our game, because in no other area I need to freeze myself and not challenge the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think,
Keely, in my opinion, I would love the rule to be a little bit of, I know we have to receive, controlled, on the ground, etc. I think if you, as a defender, because you're inside your own defensive circle, therefore you should be allowed to defend your circle. If an aerial comes to an attacker and I'm standing 5 meters away, and it's a 5 meters away, and he touches the ball, regardless of where he touches it, I should be allowed to put pressure on because I'm still 5 meters. It doesn't matter if his touch is really good. If he has a really bad touch and it takes him backwards, that he still has a little bit of an advantage because I can't ultimately go and close him down until the ball's on the floor. So therefore, as a defender inside your own circle, you're just allowing free shots, you're allowing free plays, you're allowing him to get his eyes up and be able to pass across the circle. So would I like to see, regardless of if I'm 5 meters away, an aerial comes and the attacker receives the ball, I should be allowed to go and challenge because it's up to him to receive it perfectly. I can't say when is a good receive and when's a bad receive. That's not part of my defensive duties. That's not what I'm there for, essentially. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. So I think I've just sort of amended this, and this honestly, like when I'm talking about these plays and I'm coaching umpires, I am talking about this, saying the on the ground thing, don't even at most levels of play. The notion of it being on the ground was what we used to understand would make it safe, but now we know that that's not the case. And of course, that will vary from level to level, which is a point that Matt here made, that it's got to work for all levels of hockey. Well, welcome to hockey. Like everything that we do when we're interpreting as umpires, and I have umpired absolutely every level, from all the way from the top international, all the way down to my local hockey, and I know how to be able to adjust what I'm calling based on what the players need in order to be safe. Because again, the principle behind this rule is we're just trying to make sure nobody dies, and we're trying to make sure everybody can go to work the next day. So if we keep that in mind as our guiding principle, but I do like this, or even if the notion of control is enough. So if we take this out and we look at received and controlled and just leave off the on the ground, if we could amend that, because control could mean being on the ground if you're an under 12. It could mean, that the ball is simply that first touch, as you described, David, that's all it takes. So that's an interesting idea. Do we want to maybe go to that?
I would like to challenge here then Kelly,
Okay.
that is well, because I think this is a very important question. How can we standardize the understanding, and regardless of different levels and so on? So I think it's a difficult question to answer for sure, but it's an important question. You are also right by saying, okay, welcome to hockey, because we have that a lot in our sport, and that also makes our sport so multi-layered and so fun and so exciting. Sure, but then my challenge, okay, what's controlled then? What is controlled? Yeah, that is my question.
Yeah.
What could be considered, or what could be unanimously accepted as controlled?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's the issue. If you're at international level, ideally you're going to be deemed that you should be able to control a high ball. I know everyone. It's not always going to happen. That's just not part of hockey and part of sport. It just doesn't happen. But you're almost penalizing a defender for an attacker who miscontrols an aerial and still can't defend his own circle because he has to wait. And I think that's becoming a little bit of the issue. It's almost the ascendancy is on the attacker. So I'd essentially have to wait for him to receive it. Is it controlled? Yes, it's controlled. Is it on the floor? Yes, it's on the floor. And by that time, somebody's putting it onto their backhand and firing it across the circle, sort of thing. And I have no hope. There's just no point me being there. I do get what you mean. I do get with that bit. But again, I'm more thinking international level, so it's harder to then justify with the younger generation and your junior age groups and your even your junior NAG system is what is controlled. But that's up to the attacker. That's where they've got to get better. If we're trying to get better at our defending and blocking and our circle defense and anything that happens with that, then surely we have to keep encouraging players to make sure it's controlled, because therefore it makes it the safest way. If it's uncontrolled, then it becomes surely more dangerous for everyone.
Yeah. And I'm just bringing in Fraser's comments here, Boss F Hockey, because Fraser's a club level player who's sort of in that middle range of, not quite top domestic level, not international, but, very aware of hockey and all that sort of thing. He reads that rule and he says, well, oh, I can't be tackled unless the ball's on the ground. That seems a little unfair. And clearly that's not what the understanding, even that, players who don't actually look at the rule book on a regular basis. He's like, whoa, I didn't really know this. So that's not the way we would apply it. Fraser, we would, as an umpire, as soon as I feel and I'm applying my understanding of what players are doing and saying, oh, it's David Ames, he's received that ball, and if he deflects it off to the side, I'm more likely and I'm highly likely to determine that he wanted to do that. That's not an accident, right? So I would be doing that, that calculation in my head. But if that were a club level player in Calgary here, I'd be like, oh, that's a complete accident. They totally didn't want to do that. That's a mishandle. And that changes everything. So it's really interesting. And I think, Matt here has got this definition control of being able to continue to play in a safe way. That goes back to what the principle is just all of this is about safety and things. Here's a question for you two before we get to our first clip example, and you alluded to it. We're going to look at Belgium, Germany in the final of the World Cup, and then every other clip is about England, I think. The question I have is, I hear a lot of coaches and players calling for almost like an abolition of the error rule. Like, can't we just call it on safety? Can't we just call it on safety? Is that something that you believe? And what do you think that would look like? Because I think we're moving there. We're just moving little bit by bit, just scaling back the rules step by step. What does that look like to you two? And, what do you think how that could look? Does that terrify you, David, as a player? Do you think, holy crap, like I need something there? If I'm the initial receiver as a defender in my deep end, I don't want to have somebody running at me. I'm thinking that some kind of space is useful to have as a protective area. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it has to. We're looking at creating more danger if that is the case, Kaylee. Yeah, and I think if you want to apply the rule to from junior the whole way up, then that could be quite messy. So it could. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, Bernardo, what do you think? I know we've had conversations about this, so I can't wait to hear what you're going to say on the record.
I can briefly mention about that disagreement or that part, because I like at least to bring that into the mix, let's say. But before that, I would say that in certain situations in the World Cup, I saw a very loose criteria that was basically if a player touches in the ball, we allow a challenge to happen, right? So that was maybe the most loose, the most open interpretation of this rule. Not so much into the circle, of course, because in the circle there is a little bit more. The situation is a bit more careful, and you don't want to risk to go too early, or you don't want to risk to challenge because you misinterpreted if the opponent player controlled or not. So again, the big question is always what is control, and it's so subjective. But maybe we need to find a stupid way to really define what is control. Is a number of touches, is the height of the receiving, is a time frame. I don't know. I'm saying something that is stupid, but now is also stupid that we cannot bring some concrete definition to this, because it creates more disagreement than agreement, right? Because if it goes against me, I don't like it and I disagree. But if it goes in my favor, I close my eyes, kind of. I'm putting this in a very stupid analogy. So I don't have a clear answer to that, but I think the safety needs to be a point here, and we cannot just remove that. Otherwise, it can be reckless. I mean, I prepare a shot, David comes running to me, and I still smash the ball. And I think we need to have some kind of some definition, some regulation, some guidelines. And again, I know, Kelly, you don't like this, and I also I don't know. I didn't dive further into considering this, but is it that we would need some protective headgear? And I know this sounds stupid, but if the game and the rules and the technique and the speed is evolving, we need to keep on asking ourselves, how we can sustain the speed and the flow of the game. And now I'm getting back a little bit, Ernst, to the conversation. I saw part of the conversation about dry artificial pitch, and I think we all like the pace of our game. I mean, it's fantastic, right? Also, when I bring some friends that they know hockey, they are amazed. So I think we need to sustain that, and we need to sustain aerial hockey, because it's fantastic to watch. You know, it's so cool to watch this aerial passes, aerial receivings. So I think I would say we need to keep that. But I don't have now a concrete answer. What's the best way to regulate that? And I think this conversation is caused by being so difficult to define that as well, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've got some really good comments coming in and suggestions, like Catherine asking here, should the question be, I'm trying to bring it up on the broadcast, there we go, is 5 meters the right zone? Maybe we have to look at a different distance. Do you need a full 5 meters, or do you only need 3? Do you only need 2? I mean, I know how tall some of y'all are, and I'd be a little concerned about how far you can reach with your stick if 5 meters isn't there. Here's Kat thinking about whether a number of touches. So you sort of get a number of touches before that goes. And let's see, Mark.
It's always very linear. Sorry, Gil. It always sounds very linear to me, like number of touches or number of time, because I would like the rules as open as possible. But I just want to challenge how we could find a better definition to control.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the last one before we go look at a clip. Kampong, I can't read that. Jude. Is the most easy.
This is Bert de Boer.
So it's kind of French, but it's not French. Okay, cool. The most easy solution is receive below the shoulder only, which that's kind of interesting. So instead of looking at how much distance you have, it's that you can't. We go back to not being able to play the ball above the shoulder. I don't know.
Yeah,
No,
I think that makes sense in a way, and I know that a lot will disagree, but for me, in all honesty, we need to keep the game flowing, and there will always be discussions if we bring the 5 meters to 3 meters or to 7 meters, or we say there has to be 3 touches or 2 touches, or it has to be flat and still on the ground or not. There will always be discussion. And the reason why we have this rule is to eliminate danger. So I am for just allowing, and I hate it in all other aspects of the game, but in this case, just allow the umpire to assess, is there danger? And use their best judgment. And there will be then different situations at high level hockey or in junior hockey or recreational hockey, which is fine because these are different situations. The danger is different in a top game versus a junior game. Just let common sense from an umpire be the judge. Is this dangerous? Yes or no? And then remove all the 5 meters, remove all the difficulties of what is control, what is not control, and bring it back to something simple. Is it dangerous or not? And yes, it's a judgment, and it's not objective. But yeah, hey, there's discussion now as well with objective rules or options.
Yeah.
So why not just bring it back to that? And then maybe the suggestion from Bert de Boer from Kampong with okay, receive only under the shoulder. Yeah, there is some valid points in that, I think. But for me, it is the most important is just let them decide: is it danger or is it not danger? Because that will create the most of flow in the game, I think.
Okay.
But okay, I'm not a coach. I'm not a player.
No,
I'm not an umpire.
but you're a respected observer, commentator, and you've been around long enough, so we get it. Okay,
Sorry, Kelly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just comment something that Ernst said? Because I agree with you, Ernst. But it's not just because it's danger. It's because sometimes it feels counter-natural to the logic of the game. So as it is now, as it is currently, right? So it's not just because dangers. Now we try to implement this rule to because of safety reasons, which should be a primordial reason, but it also creates a counter-natural situation now where I'm restrained for challenging a ball, which doesn't happen in any other area of the game. So I can always challenge you if you carry the ball. I should be always free to challenge you. So, but yeah, I agree with you. But then you always allow some discussions about the criteria of the umpire A and the criteria of the umpire B, and can also be a very endless discussion.
Absolutely, but I think that it becomes something where we just have to accept that is a judgment call from the umpire in that part of the field, and I hate that situation in any other kind of part of the field or part of the game, but here I think it is the only way if you want a free-flowing game. I think it's the only way that we just have to accept that, okay, guys, this is going to be a judgment call by the umpire, and sometimes we will agree and sometimes we will not agree. That's the case today as well. So why not remove the restrictions?
Yeah.
Okay.
David, you disagree?
Yeah, Ernst, I think it's much, again, easier said than done, because
Probably
on one day, which you'll have seen in the World Cup, which I think somebody just asked, was there any controversies or was there any differences of maybe one day being given a PC via a referral and the next day not given a PC via referral, which is something probably I'd be not keen to speak about today, but something I definitely thought about that we should be doing better with the referral. I know you've had it, Katie, with Creedy as well. You've spoken about it, but that'd be something different. But that's the hard bit, is you maybe have someone in the video booth who thinks completely different to someone the next day, which I think at times we had during the World Cup, which we might see in the video.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's dive into the videos now. So Candice, what happened was I obviously pulled from my vast library of clips of a few things, and just so happens coincided with a few clips that David also provided, just from his own experience, obviously. So it means we are vastly overrepresented with England clips. But let's start off with this one with from the final with Belgium and Germany, and just get your thoughts on this one.
The shot is a dangerous one from De Slova. It wasn't going on target.
And hopefully
it's
not too loud. I like having the commentators, because when the commentators talk, it's shaping how fans are perceiving the calls. They're usually very wrong. Usually.
I don't think that's a foul.
And certain comment, Mace gets it more right than a lot, that sort of thing. But
the ball, the Slovo,
and then he's trying to go back as well.
I think that's the hard one there, Kelly, which I spoke about previously, is the receive going forward towards a defender makes it pretty much impossible for you to defend it. Like you might as well. I'm surprised at this, and this is why this wasn't given a corner almost instantly, because you don't really have that much an advantage from it if you look at it. And also then, somebody almost nearly gets killed here.
I mean, the shot's terrible.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
That's almost a different issue, right?
Yeah, no, completely. But I think this had to go to a referral, I think, for that.
It did. So you think in this case that by default this like this play, this should have been a corner right away. You would expect this to be given as a corner.
Yes, because it's pretty much impossible for a defender to defend because his first touch takes him forward towards him.
But doesn't that mean that the defender's done the right thing at that moment? They're 5 when it goes, and then it's the attacker's choice and responsibility to play that ball forward, and the defender shouldn't be penalized for that.
Yeah, no, agreed. But I'm going by the principle of the rules, essentially. Would I like this to just play on? Essentially, the defender can almost intercept it now because he's played it towards him 100%. Right. That's, I think, the way it should be played. But not within the rules that we're being asked to do at the minute.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think, Bernardo, about this play?
It's a complex one because I hear both of you, but I think it's again goes back to what is control, because here there is a clear intention in the first touch to get the ball forward, not really to get the ball into the player's skill area, as you want to call it. So do you consider that in this first touch he is bringing the ball within the 5 meters distance? Okay, that it's a tough one. For me, if we are talking about flow and if we are talking about being flexible, I'd say that the defender can approach the ball if there is a clear attention, and that's what feels to me. There's a clear attention for the ball to be played towards the defender there. So I would, as an umpire, luckily I'm not, I would close my eyes to this. I would not consider this a penalty corner.
Yeah.
But me, that I like flow, and I'm very bad umpire, so.
Oh, that's music to my ears, Bernardo. That's music. And honestly, David, for me, if I had my druthers about me, I would have let this play on, because maybe this is my defender heart talking, but I don't think that any defender here should be penalized because the ball gets played towards them.
Agreed.
And let's see if this is let's go to this one. When this actually happened in your game, we were having a watch party and every umpire in there groaned when your team went to referral on this, because there weren't a lot of people who thought that you had a leg to stand on. And I mean you as in like the team, not you in particular. So here we were looking at, there's that initial touch, and from each angle, it does look slightly different. I think, I see this right here. Okay, there's the 5 that's initially given, and then you have this tower footage, and it makes it look a little bit different, as angles always do. What did you guys think about this situation?
I think, and again, I'm probably being very specific on the rule. If it says you can't be within 5 of the receiver, to me he never is 5 at any moment that he receives the ball. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
so if we're saying that it's received and controlled and on the floor, in all honesty, I would love this just to play on. I actually, when I look at it, I'm like, yes, this is the way I would like the rule to be played. But by the rule that we're seeing at the minute and what we're being given, you have to have given the receiver 5 meters. And to me, he was never 5 meters, which arguably then is like, why isn't it a corner? Because you don't really have that much of an advantage unless you swing. If that makes sense.
Right.
I want to say that first of all, I want to say that it's a very nice technical execution, either in the pass and in the receiving. So like the point where the ball is dropping is exactly in the baseline. So that was very, very nice to see. But also what is interesting in this kind of situation, or in this situation, is in the first video angle that you bring, I feel that the white defender is not very conscious about someone leading into his back, which changed in the video tower footage. You really see that the white defender adjusts his position a little bit because he feels there is someone. So if you want to be criterious and going by the book, as David says, okay, then this might not be a 5 meter within 5 meter distance. Yeah.
And that's the whole issue with it, isn't it, Keely? It's just like the rule makes it so hard for umpires to umpire,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Because I think we'd all like this to be played on, and this is probably where I'm thinking is, to me, when our player receives it, he hasn't been encroached, essentially. So he hasn't tried to win it as soon as he's controlled it, essentially. As soon as he's effectively, well, potentially had control, then he's able to put pressure on, which I like, because defensively inside your circle, you still got to be able to defend, you know. But if we're going back to the rule in terms of what we all said, if you have to be 5 meters from the receiver, to me, he's never 5 for any part of it. Even though he maybe backs off one step, even if he still backs off one step, I still don't think he's 5.
Yeah, you know what?
And that's my opinion.
And I think it's close, because for me, the angle gets flattened when we look at it this way, because obviously we know from this mark to this mark that's 5, right? That's a established fact. We know this is 9. Somebody's going to correct me. God, I hate it when I'm under pressure and I say things wrong. But that actually doesn't look far off 5. It's 5. It's and umpires, I think, when we go to video referral and we start looking at whether, the ball has traveled 5 before it's come straight into the circle and things like that, we get so particularly technical about trying to measure it out. But an umpire in this situation is just going to be saying, is that 5-ish? Because who the hell knows? Because we know that the angles change absolutely everything about what we're perceiving. So I don't know. That's really tough. What I look at is what the defender does, and that the defender, waits, clearly sort of plants, and then the reception, and he actually then retracts himself again a second time. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That it just sort of gives me the sign that the defender is trying to give you give the attacker the space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. Which
Also,
I like. That's,
What do you think, B? Was that you, or was that Ernst?
No, I just wanted to comment on what you said, the 5-ish, because in all the whole because I think we need to have the same standard for that, and there's like we all find it more exciting that the umpire at the higher level, being first divisions or international hockey, it's more in the ish, right? In the 5-ish, there's a stick tackle, but close your eyes, let it roll. So if we appreciate that, and if we think that's better for the game, then we also need to be flexible in this kind of situations here, right? So as you say, it's 5-ish, it's 5, and I think I like that more, in terms of letting the ball roll, than to be super criteria here. I know it doesn't solve our problem, but just if we have a measure for international, for high level hockey, that we allow and close our eyes to certain situations, then let's use that standard always then, right?
Yeah. No, agreed. I'm sorry, I'm being stubborn, but I'm going back to the rules. So if the rule is saying it has to be on the ground, so to me, when is the ball on the ground? Like the ball, probably, if you're being specific, the ball's on the ground now.
Yeah. No,
he's within 5.
totally
and
understand
that's the real hard bit.
Yeah.
That's the hard bit for umpires.
Yeah.
But the problem there, David, is that the player could let the ball bounce and smash the ball in the air.
100%. And that's no, I agree. That's what I said. That's what I said at the very beginning. Is you can an attacker just like let the ball bounce and just keep bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and that's again, it's a little bit of how the rule is written. Like, what does it mean on the ground? Is it the first bounce? Is it like it has to be on the floor? Because that's the ball on the floor now, and he's within 2 meters, less than 2.
Yeah, that is controlled and on the ground. But control arguably happened. Okay, not the first. We wouldn't say the first reception. I mean, that's kind of a dicey one. That's a tough reception. But I'd say this touch. This touch is control for me.
Yeah.
Which, still seems a little bit. It still seems a little bit hard. Like I have a lot of empathy for all of the, the players here trying to sort it out. Yeah, I don't know. Let's go to the one where you were directly involved, because I can't wait to hear what you. Listen to the commentators just shit talking you here, though. It's the
Ames
best.
realises he can't allow him the free shot. So he,
Well, I think though that sometimes this is difficult because the ball wasn't trapped perfectly either, and if they don't bring it down perfectly, there's the ball that's thrown. Doesn't trap it perfectly.
he's definitely 5, isn't he?
Yeah, well, that's a difficult one. Ames knew what he was doing though. He wasn't going to give him an easy chance.
You knew what you were doing, David. You knew what you were doing.
And that's coming from the great Rick Salsworth.
Yeah,
Just saying, his telepathy
Coming
is
from one of the best.
fantastic. There you go. So tell me, David, what did you think about this in the moment and how it happened? You looked really happy about the call.
Yeah, again, it's a little bit of like how I would like it to be played, where I feel like I'm in no position to tackle when he receives it. But like ultimately, I can't stay 5 and let this guy have a free shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I within 5 on his receive? I think I probably maybe am, but like his control isn't that great, and it goes backwards. So therefore, like when do I wait to put pressure on him?
Yeah.
Essentially, it's to me this is a little bit of a tough one, and I think potentially it could be because I never really stop, or my momentum never really like I never slow down essentially. But if his touch is not bad, but it's a little bit like not great and it goes backwards slightly, why should I have to wait until he's fully in control to be able to put pressure on inside my own circle?
Yeah. And I'm not even sure how much of a mishandle that is. I think that's that's a bit of I'm actually going to, let this ball, he does receive it a bit behind him. He doesn't look like, oh crap, the ball's gone behind me. It's just like, oh, this is a good way to generate a different angle in the circle and a different space. And
he's in the air, he's jumping when he does that. So he needed to kind of cushion the ball somehow. The ball needed to be a bit more because he's fully in the air.
Yeah. But again, it comes back to my point, especially with the first one, if it's not on the ground. Therefore, it should be a penalty corner, similar to the first clip we just said. But that again, that's
if we go by the writing. Yeah, but I think you're getting a lot of empathy. Like I certainly feel empathy here, and a lot of the umpires that are chiming into the chat here, they're all saying no. I mean, I would let this play on, and I think that's nice to hear, because it's good to hear that umpires are thinking about not applying rules strictly and officiously, but looking at what do you actually need in the game in order to stay safe, to execute your skills, and to show off what you could do. Because that's why we're there, is to let you guys do what you can do in the best
Kelly,
ways.
one question. Do we know when the 5-meter rule and which year was that implemented?
For aerials?
Yeah. I
don't
take you as the encyclopedia here. No, okay, but
it's
that might be
2000. It's been in the rule book for a long time, like a lot longer than as a player and then umpire coming up. Like I didn't really know this stuff existed, but it's been in the rule book a long time. Maybe somebody in the comments can, come on, Kat, do some research.
Might be interesting to understand, because now 5 meters, it feels a bit too far in the highest level. It feels just, I mean, the conclusion here, if David doesn't challenge or approach this, the Spanish attacker can just smash a ball into the goal without being challenged, and we don't want that. It doesn't make sense for in the logic of the game, right? So it might be something for us to reconsider. Maybe 3 meters. I don't know, a shorter radio there.
Yeah. So Edward and Kat are both they're saying 2009. So okay, that's good to know. That's interesting.
That was a while ago. Sticks were not so powerful. The areas were not so common.
No, absolutely. Like the whole way. I mean, self pass. The fact that you guys can aerial on the move. You can You know,
Yeah.
back when I started playing and we were doing aerials, remember how you had to move the ball the 1 meter and it had to be pushed to your friend who would stand in front of you taking the free hit, and then it would stop, and then you would aerial it and it would only go vertically up the pitch. You would never even think about using an angle. You would just like, okay, and you would inevitably just put the ball straight into the defender's face who was right in front of you because it was such a stationary static play. Okay, maybe that was just me. I don't know, but there you go. That's interesting. Here, let me show you a couple that I pulled out from my collection that were kind of interesting.
Then the overhead ball thrown up underneath. Is there opportunity on the backhand? Really good individual skill. That's a super.
And that's so this is Sarah at EHL. And I think it's interesting because she's taken the first touch as being the moment of control. And I think she's reading that based on the body language of the attacker, looking like super like, okay, I've touched the ball, but now I'm looking up, I'm assessing my options. Just like you were talking about, David, he's got enough time to get his eyes up. So we can consider that control. And he's electing to let the ball bounce. And it seems to me from this that the players are like, yeah, let's go. This is fine. Nobody's mad. Nobody's calling for a penalty corner. Nobody's, fussing at all. What do you think about this one, David? Because this certainly isn't controlled on the ground in 5 meters.
No, yeah. Again, do I want this? Like, I think Sarah's made a great decision, I think. But again, I keep coming back to the rule. It's hard to really, it's hard to really, when you read the rule, what is controlled, what's on the ground. If we're saying on the ground, then it's probably a corner. But I actually think this is the way it should be played.
Yeah.
I think this. Just thinking on as we speak. Either we need to standardize that after the first touch, you need to be able to challenge the ball, and that means that. But the first touch. Yeah, after the first touch, you need to be able to challenge the ball. So you're required to have a good technical execution there. Or we need to, I would say, we need to enshorten a little bit the radio to approach the ball, at least inside of the circle.
It's an interesting thought because it puts, I mean, one of the things that we keep touching on, and from David's perspective, is the really unfair balance here that the defender doesn't know when control is, doesn't know when they can close, and they need to be able to defend. And the one touch rule would really put the onus on the attacker to have the skill to do something with the ball. Like they would have to, now it's like, okay, I know that as soon as I touch this, then I'm going to be closed. Somebody's going to
which
possess
happens here in the pitch, which happens in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
If you mistrap the ball, you lose the ball.
Yeah.
If you don't control the ball, you cannot play on. So it feels that is way too unbalanced or way too unfair inside of the circle from a defensive perspective at this moment right now, where the skill is advancing so much, and we are still not allowing the defense player to challenge the ball.
Yeah, there we go. Here, Matt saying players, umpires play to the rules, so there should be no ambiguity. We're now thinking of letting players play on as long as they are safe. Matt, I'm sort of talking about what I see the future being, because I hear this in conversations so much with top level people that they're calling for this complete, like, why do we even, I mean, I've heard coaches on podcasts and in articles and stuff saying, why do we even have this rule? Like, let's just call it on safety, which I think what I've heard from everybody else here is like, well, no, Ernst is like, sure, let's go. But Bernardo and David have both said, I don't think that's going to happen just quite yet. But what I think is interesting, one of the things that I talk to is about the development of hockey culture. When you think about this sport, if you know nothing about it and you watch it and you go, how is it that nobody dies? Because here are sticks and the ball is flying around at this incredible rate of speed, and it looks like it's savagely dangerous. how is it that nothing happens? And it's because we grow up as players in the game understanding what we can do that makes things safe and what makes them dangerous. And we generally don't do the dangerous stuff. The worst games to umpire, I think everybody in the chat would agree that those are games where you have a novice adult player who doesn't know anything about the sport, comes in and maybe they're informed by football, maybe they're informed by ice hockey, lacrosse, whatever. They come into the sport and they're crazy. We're just like, whoa, do not do any of the things that you just did. You are going to, and we panic, right? We feel this fear because they are not behaving the way that our culture has evolved. And what I see is this general sort of step-by-step relaxation of the rules is leaving the aerial ball and the safety of it to the culture and saying, okay, everybody kind of gets this now. Let's step it back a little bit. And people are more trustworthy to do the safe thing. Okay, it's been a couple more years now. Now we can step it back again. I don't know if I'm imparting too much intentionality on the part of the rules committee. I may well be, but this is how I think of it. This is what I see. But I know that the fear is, every time that all chaos is going to break loose. Like, remember when we went from not being able to play above the shoulder to being able to use our sticks above the shoulder, and how many people said this is going to be absolute dogs and cats living together, and it actually worked out pretty well. Generally,
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Keep the game flowing. Keep the game flowing, and have a judgment. Is it dangerous or not?
Yeah,
that's for me. Kili, we've been talking for more or less an hour now. So are there specific stuff that we need to get through still, or what I would like to close off otherwise with? But if we're not there yet, we're not there yet. But I would like to hear from both David and from Bernardo and from you. What should the rule be?
Who wants to go first?
David,
I
players have to go first. Players have to go first.
I think I just said it at the very, very beginning. I would love to see a defender that is 5 meters away from an attacker. As soon as he touches the ball, I should be allowed to encroach and defend my own circle. Pretty much, which I think Fernando just said it briefly there a couple of minutes ago. I feel like that's the best case scenario for, one, an improvement of an attacker to make sure that your ball's controlled and you're in charge of it, and two, it gives license for a defender who is 5 meters away to now defend his own circle rather than having so much advantage at the minute given to an attacker to be able to either get his eyes up and pass or shoot if the angle's correct or that type. So that's ultimately what I would like to see.
Yeah. 5 or 5-ish?
5 yards.
We don't
5
do
yards. Now you're making it even more difficult.
We
5
don't
meters.
do yards.
Come
We
on.
do meters, David. Come on. I was like so in love with everything that you said until you brought in the imperial system. Damn it.
Bernardo. Bernardo, your thoughts on what should be the rule?
I mean, I'm repeating myself, but and also agreeing with David, I would say the same. I mean, also looking to this clips and also looking to the real life. Okay, make it, or at least at a reasonable, good, maybe senior or high level, junior level. Make it after the first touch. That's control. You have a first touch, that's control, because the players are developing so much aerial skill in the passing and in the receiving that it feels wrong that we still give such an advantage to the attacking player inside of the circle. So make it one touch as a criteria of control, and make it 5-ish in a good level, and maybe 5 in a not so good level.
Kili, your thoughts as an umpire. What should be the rule?
Don't tell me we agree, Kili.
Bernardo, that is exactly the thought that's running through my head is how do I How do I sit here
Wow.
and actually say I agree with Bernardo Fernandez? This is a shocking
It's
thing.
okay.
But no,
For a change.
for an absolute change. But I really like this because I've had the opportunity to hear, you know, what David's had to say, what you've had to say, and Ernst, and bringing that all together and applying it to what we saw in the clips. I actually do like this first touch idea a lot. And, you know, Catherine brings up the point here that, you know, how would you umpire this in a mid-level domestic game? When you think about the aerial reception, like forget about where it came from, but once the ball has been touched, most players aren't receiving aerials, especially at the lower levels over up here. They're actually receiving aerials more like their shoulder, chest height, midriff, that sort of thing. And if somebody is 3D skilling it, if the ball for whatever reason has been deflected up into that kind of space, we do allow competition for that ball with just sort of general safety, like don't be a jerk about it ideas. So if you take away where the ball came from and the ball is now touched by a player at that point, would I expect there to be a fair, safe competition for the ball? I would. So as long as that initial 5 meters is given. So yeah, I get to the same conclusion that you both do as well. And I mean, who knows? Maybe Ernst are we going to go 4 for 4 on this?
Wow. No, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense. Absolutely, I like what especially David's approach here. Just the first touch, and then let the defender storm in. I think that will be fine. In all honesty, I think you will still have situations where, like for example, the first clip with Arthur de Slover, where his first touch is a bouncing ball towards the defender. Yeah, will that again create danger? Will that create, now it's just 3D play and play on? That on different levels of the game, I think will still create a lot of discussion. So therefore, yeah, and you know me, I am stubborn. I will stick to my own view and let them be the judge. Is it dangerous or is it not dangerous?
Absolutely, that's totally fair. But that's probably the most consensus I could have ever imagined that we were going to get on a show like this. This is awesome. And David, thanks
Absolutely.
for bringing those clips forward. They were definitely on my list of those. I had a few others that we didn't get to, but if anybody is wondering about other sort of aerial discussions, especially interceptions, I focused on that a lot during the Men's World Cup. So you can go back through, and I'll put some in the descriptions of past What Up Wednesdays. That's the name of my little live stream that I do every Wednesday, where I pull out clips.
This is a What Up Wednesday on Friday.
It's a What Up Friday. It's a What Up Friday. That it's already been said in the first in the chat. But you can go back to those and you can look through our discussions and see, and you can gauge whether I'm being consistent on these things. And look at other scenarios, like there's the France-Argentina play where the goalkeeper was infringing the 5 meters and got called for a penalty stroke inside a circle. And that was a really interesting one. We talked about that on a What Up Wednesday. And the time that Roper came flying in and collided with the Welsh goalkeeper and injured himself. But he's not quite made of glass the way the Creedy is, so he was fine. You know, so that we have plays like that. So feel free to, you know, and I encourage you to go back and look at those. The more that we look at clips together and we talk them through, that's how we really develop this kind of incredible understanding about how we're looking at the game and where we see it going. And I'm really pleased that we were able to do that. So there you go. I'm just looking at the chat to see if there's any other comments that are really helpful. Is this show short because it's on a Friday? Kat, it's because they don't know what a Keeley hour is. So.
Yeah, well, sorry, Kat. I do 1 hour streams. That's enough. I know that Keeley can talk for hours and hours and hours, and especially with all you umpires. No. We go straight to the point. We talk about what we said, and that's it. 1 hour, that's enough.
That's because you don't have as many friends as I do. Just saying.
Oh, probably. Probably. No, I think the 1 hour mark is a good one to keep everybody involved and engaged and not dozing off as well. So I would like to thank both Bernardo and David for sharing their knowledge and sharing their insights with us. It's always fun to have an umpire, a coach, and a player on the call. And yeah, you didn't need any cards, Keely. You didn't need to blow the whistle. There were no red cards, there were no green cards, no yellow cards involved.
I have exceptional management skills, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah. You passed the test. You passed the test in this one. So thanks, guys, and thanks very much, Keely. I will give you the last word since you are controlling the buttons on this show. So if you want to keep on going, I can't do anything about it. But
no. I just, Bernardo, thanks for stepping in at the last minute. And David, it's so great to talk to a player who's there on the pitch and actually enduring these decisions and being able to share what you think. So that really helps me. I'm really pleased that the way that I've been looking at it and trying to encourage umpires to understand it is not too far off. And that means a lot to me because I really want to help make sure that we as a community, as an umpiring community, keep up with what you're doing as, innovative coaches, Bernardo, and, innovative players, because that's how we make this game better. And that has always been what my mission has been here with FHumpires and stuff. And the last thank you is to everybody in the chat, in the comments. It's been fantastic. I usually bring up absolutely everybody's comments and discuss them. That's why my shows go for so long. But it's just, I've been trying to pull up as much as I can. And I really appreciate everybody's contributions there because you had some really good ideas and all that sort of thing. Absolutely. So I will just put up another couple thank yous and I'll go to the screen. But thanks everybody. And we'll see you again very soon.